The sun had just started to climb over the horizon, spilling soft gold across a sleepy roadside diner. Coffee steamed on chipped mugs. Engines rumbled low in the background. The air smelled of bacon, leather, and gasoline. Outside, a group of Hell's Angels bikers lounged by their motorcycles, rough, intimidating, the kind of men most people avoided. But beneath those tattoos and vests were stories few had ever cared to ask about. Their laughter bounced off the chrome until a sudden, desperate cry cut through the morning. Everyone froze. A small girl in a red dress came sprinting across the parking lot, boots slipping on the cold pavement, hair flying, face streaked with dirt and tears. Her voice cracked with terror. "Please, they're hurting my mama. Somebody help." The sound of her sobs was so raw, so human, it silenced even the engines. For a long moment, no one moved until one man did. If you still believe in compassion, second chances, and the quiet heroes of this world, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to PureKindness, because what happens next will warm your heart. The biker's name was Mason Cole, late 30s, broad-shouldered, the Hell's Angels patch stitched proudly on his back. He'd seen his share of fights and pain, but never a child crying like that. He knelt down, steadying her trembling hands. "Where's your mom, sweetheart?" he asked, his gravelly voice softened with concern. The girl pointed down the road toward a row of old half-hidden trailers. "They're beating her," she sobbed. Mason stood, eyes dark with resolve. "Tank, Ryder, let's move." Engines roared to life. Tires screeched. In seconds, 3 bikes disappeared down the dusty road, leaving the diner in stunned silence. One of the bikers gently wrapped the girl in his leather jacket and brought her inside. She sat by the window, watching the red taillights fade into the morning fog. 5 minutes later, faint sounds drifted back, shouting, the crash of glass, the growl of engines slicing through chaos. Mason and his brothers had found the trailer. Inside, a man reeking of alcohol was towering over a bruised woman, fists raised, before he could strike again. Heavy boots hit the floorboards. Mason caught the man's wrist mid-swing, twisted it hard, and sent the bottle crashing to the ground. The others pinned him fast. No words, just action. When Mason turned to the woman, his voice softened. "You okay, ma'am?" Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded weakly. Outside, police sirens began to echo. A neighbor must have called it in. But the bikers didn't run. They stood quietly in the yard as the cops arrived, the little girl clinging to Mason's leg. The woman, Carla, explained everything. The man was her ex-boyfriend, freshly out of jail, who had come looking for revenge. When the handcuffs clicked shut, Mason walked Hannah, the little girl, to his bike. "You did good, kid," he said softly. "You were brave." They rode back together. Hannah holding onto a helmet too big for her head as the morning sun rose fully above the trees. When they returned, the diner crowd stood waiting. Locals, travelers, all watching in silence. Carla, bruised but alive, walked behind Mason and her daughter. For a moment, the world went still. Carla's voice shook as she whispered, "I didn't think anyone would come." Mason glanced down at Hannah. "She made sure we did." The diner's owner brought out blankets and coffee. One by one, the bikers took off their jackets, draping them around Carla and Hannah, small act that spoke louder than words. Even the police officers looked away in quiet respect. Mason leaned down, his voice gentle. "You take care of your mama now. All right, you're her little guardian angel." News of what happened spread through town by lunchtime. People stopped by the diner to shake hands, to thank the men who'd acted when others froze. When someone asked Mason why he did it, he simply said, "You don't ignore a cry like that. Doesn't matter what colors you wear, some things are just human." Weeks passed. Carla and Hannah rebuilt their lives with help from the community, donations, furniture, even a small apartment. And every Sunday morning, a few bikes would roll up to that diner again. Mason and his brothers would share coffee, laughter, and a reminder of why kindness still matters. One spring morning, Hannah ran up to Mason with a crayon drawing motorcycles, a little girl in red, and a biker kneeling beside her. "This is us," she said proudly. Mason looked at it for a long moment, then folded it carefully and tucked it inside his vest. "That's coming with me wherever I ride," he said with a smile. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to PureKindnessHub, because even the toughest hearts can hold the gentlest acts of kindness. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were one of those bikers?